Welcome to the Page Turnerz podcast, where book lovers unite to celebrate the enchanting world of fiction. With your host, Paul A. Brooks. In each episode, we'll dive into the captivating realms of storytelling, exploring the pages that transport us to magical places and introduce us to unforgettable characters. In each episode, we'll embark on a creative expedition through the minds of seasoned and emerging writers to unravel the mysteries and unveil the passion that fuels their stories. Join us on this odyssey through the pages and pixels of imagination, where words become worlds and stories illuminate our lives. So, pour yourself a coffee and immerse yourself in discussions about writing, gripping plots, heroes and villains, and the sheer joy of escaping into a well-crafted story.
Today I'm talking to J.A. Merkel, best-selling sci-fi author of the Fall Gauntlet series. We talk about how his family and upbringing inspired him to write the series, what he's writing now and what he's got planned next. Readers have left rave reviews for the Fall Gauntlet series, and I wanted to find out exactly what went into writing it. Hi everybody, welcome to Page Turnerz podcast. With me today is Joe. Joe, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Paul.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, my pleasure. Absolutely. I mean, we've been messaging backwards and forwards, so it's actually nice to get to meet you finally face to face and for us to talk about your books, your series, what you're doing, what you're writing, what you got coming up. So there's quite a lot to talk about. So we'll kind of get into that a little bit later on. But first of all, what I really want to talk about is you as a writer. Now, your series, or series one, I should say, is called The Fall Gauntlet. So let's talk a little bit about that, first of all, in terms of how you came up with the idea. What were your influences for that?
Yeah, so The Fall Gauntlet is based pretty much off of my younger brother and I's relationship.
Right.
His name is Jude. We've had a very interesting past that has had its ups and downs. And yeah, it's a story about brothers who have been lied to in different ways. And they're both trying to find the truth of what they feel inside their body, not what they've read in books or what they've been taught by institutions, the church, the state. And it's a story of their healing.
Okay, that's really interesting because it says on your website that it's a story of hope and second chances. So I'm kind of assuming that that's really what you're talking about. Sounds like a very personal story as well. Would you agree with that?
Very personal, yes. Definitely taken pieces of my life, added some sci-fi and fantasy to it, of course. But yeah, it's a very important story to me.
That's really good. It's actually a very brave thing to do as well. And I think we spoke before when we were sort of planning this for this podcast that, when you're writing something as personal as that and you are laying it out for everyone to see, there is always that worry that, it's going to be accepted or that people are going to hate it or they're going to love it or one of the two. So there's always that conflict as a writer as, how are people going to perceive this and are they going to think of it the same way that I do? So it's really brave of you to do that. So my hat is certainly off to you for that. So great stuff. So in thinking about how you wrote it, are you then a plotter or a pantser? Now, I'm sort of on the pantser end, but everyone's on a bit of a spectrum there. Sure. Often they do a little bit of both. Where do you sit on that scale?
It depends on the story for me. Recently, I am definitely much more of a plotter. I like to plot out the whole story chapter by chapter. I use a couple different frameworks. The story grid is one that I really like.
Yeah.
But within each chapter, I want to have some flexibility and be a little bit loose with how I'm planning. And then, as you know, like characters kind of make themselves known and do their own things that we have no control over. But I will say that when I'm plotting, I do a lot less rewriting.
Okay.
Although
yeah.
I think pantsing can be more fun.
Yeah, it certainly is for me. I mean, I'm very much, I do write off the seat of my pants often. I don't know about you, but I'll ask you about when you're writing some dialogue and your characters are having a conversation, the two brothers, For me, when I'm writing and it's dialogue, it's an odd situation. I can actually hear the conversation going on in my head, and it's as if I'm just copying what I'm hearing. Are you the same, or are you very directed, or is it very kind of organic in that respect?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I almost feel like I am the same with that. Do
Mhm.
you think it's our subconscious about what we think and feel about these characters, or where do you think it comes from?
I think a lot of character development, people when they write characters, there are elements of themselves in those characters. I mean, yours are based on yourself and your brother, so there's going to be an awful lot of you and your brother in those characters. So I would imagine it's an extension of your relationship, really, and it's potentially, a conversation that you might want to have with your brother, or maybe that you feel that your brother wants to have with you. And it's
Right.
certainly like that for me with my two characters, the two, my hero and the villain. They are very much, I would say, two parts of me, very
Mhm.
opposite, but they do when they do talk to each other, I'm sure they are an extension of me in both sides of those conversations. I suppose it's a bit like playing a chess game against yourself when you're playing both black and white
Right.
in that respect. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a good example. It's who we've been, who we can become, maybe the
yeah.
light and the dark inside of all of us.
Yeah. And I think really from what you've said as well about sort of opening yourself up to your story and allowing people to see your story, it
Mhm.
is very much going to be like that. So, again, I said, my hat's off to you. It's a really great thing to do. And to be able to put it in sci-fi as well, that's even better. So yeah, fantastic. Now we're going to talk about your world building skills shortly as well. But let's talk a little bit about the Fall Gauntlet that you've got. Um, could you give us a bit of an overview of the story, and then we'll talk about the three books that you've got out in the series so far individually. So if you want to kind of talk about the main things, but don't give too much away, because
Sure.
I have to say that the reviews are absolutely fantastic, and I would recommend anybody go and read it. And one of the things that a lot of people say is that they read the entire story. They can't actually put it down. They read it in one sitting. And I have to say, when I read it, particularly your last book, Chris, I just want to know more. So I'm going to bug you to get you to write the next one
Awesome. Yeah.
towards the end. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
over to you. Talk a little bit about Full Gauntlet. What it is it? How's it work?
Sure. So the Fall Gauntlet, for context, is a short story novella collection. There's going to be nine books in the first part. Bear is book one. That's a short story. And then pretty much their novellas just because the word count is a little bit higher. So they're shorter reads, 50 pages to 90 pages is the first three.
Yeah.
I will eventually be compiling them into omnibuses. So the first three will be packaged into one book and so on. And yeah, as I said, it's a story about these brothers healing. It's a dystopian story, far future. The planet is kind of has cyberpunk elements. So there's differences between uh, harsh differences between the classes, and then there's cyberpunk technology that different people can use.
Oh, that's really interesting. Sorry to interrupt, but because I was going to ask you about that with the masks that they use a little later on. I have to remember to do
Right.
that. If not, you just chime in and talk about it because
Sure, sure.
that's fascinating stuff. And the planet Calypso that it's based on,
Mhm.
is it Earth-like or is it very different?
It is very Earth-like. Yeah, it's part of a different galaxy, but it is related to Earth. As the series goes on, you'll see that they'll mention Earth and their past with our planet. But yeah, the technology is really cool. It's a lot of fun to write and research. So the main premise is there are these masks, and those are on the covers of all the books,
Yeah.
where the fighter, the Fall Gauntlet champion, is chosen by a mask. So the main character matches with a lynx, and then his brother matches with a bear, and it kind of codifies to your DNA and gives you special abilities. It brings out some of your dormant capabilities. So Benji has like precognition. He can see things before they happen, a few seconds before.
Yeah, that certainly comes out in Rat, particularly. It's certainly, there's an experience there with him and that sort of precognition, if you like. Fascinating stuff. It's really good, and I love the way you've kind of brought it in. But they are they're integral to the story, but there are also elements of the masks and the technology that remains separate, and it almost feels like sometimes it's got a bit of a sinister side to it. You know, particularly I'm thinking in was it Rat, where Soren takes Benji takes his mask off, and he has this rush of how does he describe it, trying to equalize his hormones with the testosterone and all of that, flying around to try and get his sort of stuff in together. So it feels like when you're writing it, or when I'm reading it, that the mask is is almost taking possession to a degree. Is that the kind of thing that you were going for?
Yes, I love that you said that. One of my bigger influences is Majora's Mask, especially for this story. It's one of the video games that's part of the Legend of Zelda series. And in the second game, Majora's Mask, there's this young kid, the Skull Kid. The mask ends up, it's kind of like an evil entity that ends up taking over this little kid and controlling him, and he becomes this all-powerful deity. So I really like the concept of having this powerful piece of technology, but also finding the balance, being able to say no to it. I mean, in our world, it's like there is so much technology that we can use, and sometimes it can kind of corrupt you if you use too much of it or lose touch with the rest of the world. So I really like that as a theme motif. You know, whatever your vice is, whether it's, you know, drugs, alcohol, prescription drugs, like how do you find a balance and separate yourself from that thing?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, that comes across more in Critics as well, I think, when you're reading through those. So the three that you've got out right now, first one is Bear, second one is Rat, and the third one is Critics. So they are the two brothers sort of going through three books. I'm assuming they're going to continue on all the way through the rest of the series, which we'll talk about shortly. What I was going to ask you, and you don't have to answer this, but are you going to kill one of them off? How do you feel about killing off main characters? Because for me, it's that shock factor, I think, for readers when they don't expect it. You've killed one off and you think, how did that, what are you going to do now? You know, right. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you going to kill one off or not?
Sure. I love this question. I won't get too specific about that. I definitely want people to read the books in the series, but I will say that in general, killing off characters, I think, is a necessary part of writing sci-fi fantasy. At least for me, I think it adds more drama, elevation, and the fun thing about it is, you know, there is resurrection, there is second chances if you decide to put that in. So whether or not you do, I think those deaths have a big impact on the characters, and you gotta have some of that like grief and sorrow.
Fantastic. I would say with resurrection, you're perhaps a lot less gentler than I am being. I tend to rip the character away, and that's it. They're gone. Right. It's leaving the reader thinking, "Oh, what do I do now? Where does that go?" I mean, some of the comments that I've had is like, "Why did you kill him off?" But it made sense in the story, and I think, you know, from what you've said, it is an integral part of the hope and second chances element of what you're writing. So again, that's a great thing. It's one of those kind of questions when you think, should I ask it or not? But no, that's great. That's a really good answer as well. So sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and it's real life. It's real. People die, lose people all the time. So
yeah, absolutely. And I suppose that is another good thing about it as well, is that there is a sense of realism in there. I mean, it's really easy to go, you know, right out there with technology that is going to be, you know, thousands of a million years ahead of us, that right now doesn't really make much sense. But if as a reader we can relate to the story in terms of what's going on, and it's more personal, it's much more enjoyable, and then the technology is much more fun as well. So that's really good. So thinking about that with Calypso, you said it's kind of Earth-like, so kind of real.
Yeah.
The main city, New Phasia. Do you have I'll tell you what I see when I've read it, and then you can kind of, because everyone, and I ask this quite a lot as well, as a reader and as a writer, as people ask, how do you see this person, or how do you see this city in terms of the description? With New Phasia, I see it as a city that feels like it's built on a hill, because there's lots of stairs, full of narrow alleyways that sort of constrict space. And I'm assuming that's kind of tactical, the sort of thing that the Japanese samurai did when they built their castles. They made the corridors narrow so they couldn't have whole armies charging down trying to kill the shogun. So that kind of thing, but then opens out into big courtyards where then battles can take place. Would that be, that's how it comes across to me? Is that sort of fair?
Yes. Yeah, that's a really good description of it. It's funny you say that, because as you were describing it, I was thinking of a city I visited with my younger brother. We backpacked around Europe for a little bit and went to Dubrovnik, Croatia, and I kind of feel like that is the main influence for New Phasia, at least big parts of it.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a fascinating city, and particularly when Benji talks about the fact that how beautiful it was and looks when he's trying to escape with his brother. So that's really interesting. I really like that idea. Okay, so writing the character itself, Benji Calix, is that you? Because you're writing it from his point of view, I think.
Right.
Is he based on you?
For the most part, yes. Benji's based on me, obviously, adding things here and there, not a one-for-one carbon copy, but a lot of pieces of me, a lot of pieces of my family, brothers and sisters, in that relationship with Benji and Soren.
Oh, that's really cool. So in your other stories then that you've got coming up, are the characters in those going to be based on the rest of your family? You're going to be using everybody? Because I do it all the time.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, my family's a huge influence for me. I'm one of 9. I have 4 brothers, 4 sisters. My parents obviously are huge influences, the values that they taught us and just who they are as people. And yeah, I would say a lot of my female characters, female protagonists, are hugely pieces of my 4 sisters, who are all amazing. My mom, taking different parts of them, and even my brothers too, masculine, feminine qualities in either gender. Just a lot of dynamic crossover.
Yeah. How do they feel about that? Do they agree with your depiction of them, or are you taking little elements of them and sort of molding them into a new character?
I think more of the latter. If anyone has noticed anything, they haven't said anything, other than maybe Jude, reading all the stuff, all these Fall Gauntlet stories about Benji and Soren.
Yeah. Okay. And I was going to ask you about the names. Where did their names come from? Have you got a sort of a bank of names that you've thought about and plotted out or outlined in, or do they come to you as you're writing?
They kind of just come to me as I'm writing. Benji had a J in it, so does my name. I mean, Soren doesn't follow that pattern, but I've always liked the name Soren. A video game that I played, Fire Emblem, had a Soren in it, and it just kind of pops up, and I'm like, okay, this works. So sometimes I change it, obviously, but I usually stick with it.
Yeah, it's really good as well. And what I like is that the names that you use, and it's kind of something that bugs me a little bit, is that a lot of writers, they'll use names for different characters that are really quite similar. Sometimes you can get lost with who's saying what and where and when, but your characters, their names are very distinctive, which is really nice. It makes it much easier to follow, which is good. I like that. As being a simple reader, I don't want to have to think too much. I just want to immerse myself in what you're trying to create in your world, really. Is there anything in what you've written and what you're about to write and what you're writing now that is going to be in addition to create the world, make it bigger, perhaps a little bit more detail? Are you planning on doing that?
I think so, yeah. I think we talked about this a little bit when we were chatting. Those poems that go in the front of each of the Fall Gauntlet.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, but yeah.
Yeah, kind of an additional piece of lore. It's just one page of a book called the Book of Totems, which is kind of like a sacred text that I haven't written yet, but I think that'll be a nice additional piece of lore that I could add to the universe and things like that.
That's a great idea, because right at the very beginning, for those of you who are watching and haven't read Job's work yet, right at the beginning, there's a passage from the Book of Totems that explains the animal totem, and it's really good. When I read it, I thought, okay, so there's got to be more to this. And then, is there a Book of Totems? So you've already answered that. So, well, that's great, because our journey's quite similar. I have something similar myself. In my trilogy, Altered Evolution, there is the Book of Zeteth, which is quatrains based on kind of Notre Dame style quatrains, sort of premonitions, really, those kind of things. So yeah, but I haven't written that yet either. But I'm going to have to, because people are going to ask, I suppose, and so I should look forward to reading that, which is great.
Yeah, same. That's cool.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so in Rat, second book. That when Benji and Soren are escaping and they're fighting the metal men, they then have to fight off what Benji calls the freakies, the Cirque de Freaks, and he warns his brother not to let them touch him and he's a big guy, being a bear. That they fight using pressure points. So my question is, do they have martial arts training? And do you have martial arts training?
I do not, but I saw that you have many decades of experience.
Yeah.
I have not done martial arts, but yeah, they hit the pressure points. So I might need to ask you if everything is accurate in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've been teaching karate for longer than I care to, over 40 years, believe it or not. But yeah, so it's been a while. So I've done all sorts over that time, but mostly karate and teaching that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm more than happy to do that, of course, absolutely. But it fascinated me because when you're talking about don't let them touch you, it kind of hit a thread, with me, and I thought, oh wow, okay, so they got some kind of martial arts training, which is great. Again, it gave me something else that I could latch onto on the book, and I want to know more about it. So it's fantastic. It's really good writing in that respect.
Thank you.
So moving then into your last book, Chrysix. So you've got Bear, where they escape, the two brothers escape. Then you've got Rat, where they I don't want to give it away, they escape with a cost.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's put it like that. And then Chrysix, where they are trying to recover, maybe a little bit. But then there's the next layer that comes in there with the two sisters, Laser and Mickey, and the voice particularly. Can you tell me a little bit about the spa that they end up in to try and heal and get better? Again, don't go into too much detail, but just give us a little taste of what people can expect.
Sure. So book 3, Chrysix, the spa. Yeah, the brothers, they need to recover in book 3. They go to a spa.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of open up the world a little bit more with each story. So not dumping too much in one story. You have the gauntlet fight in book 1, where you're learning about what the Fall Gauntlet is. Who are these 2 finalists that are fighting against each other? What do they get if they win? They get a wish granted, kind of just the base level things about the world. And then book 2, a little bit more, you get into the technology, the masks with the rat.
Yeah.
like, oh, the gods and the goddesses, and why was the Fall Gauntlet created? And then there's a lot more lore that the sisters, I think, bring into the story. Liza and Mickey, they both have their own dark secrets, and they're going about what they want. They actually have a very parallel, similar story to the brothers and what's happened to both of their families. And they have different ways of going about it. And then, you know, if you end up reading it, well, you've read it, but the audience, you'll kind of see, what happens with Mickey and Liza.
Yeah. Leave it at that. Let people read it. I'm saying the reviews are fantastic for it, and I have to agree that they are really. And I'm not just saying that, they are really good. The characters are. You are invested in the brothers almost immediately, and you want them to succeed, and you want to follow their journey all the way through, and you just kind of want more. And particularly with Chris, you're thinking, oh no, right, so what's next? We need more now. So here we go. So when are you going to write the next bit? So let me back up on that a little bit first of all, and ask you, how long does it take you to write one of the stories?
One of the short story novellas takes me about 2 months, I would say, if I'm being really good, writing it, editing it, and getting it published. Yeah.
Okay, so next question is, this is a closed question, so it's a yes or a no. Are you being good, and are you writing it now?
Oh, no.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to put you on the spot and say, all right, 2 months, so we can expect the next book out in what, March, April time. Okay, so, but would that be reasonable then, around that sort of time, April, May time for the next one, the next installment?
Yes, definitely. If I wasn't working on other things that I want to get out this year, it would be reasonable. So yeah, I'm gonna kind of push book 4, Condor, into this summer, June or July, I think.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So what are you writing now? What projects are you on at the moment?
Right now, this winter, I am planning to publish. The title is work in progress, but we can just call it Saudade. I'll probably end up changing it. And I want that to come out around November of this year. So I've sent that off to my editor. She's going to return it. We're going to have it done by May 1st, and then I'll spend the rest of the year kind of marketing and drumming up interest for that. Yeah. And then I'm also working on another novel, different series called Slightly Different, that I'm hoping to put out next year. So in the first draft of that, I'm going to spend a lot of energy on those 2 different series.
So it's busy anyway for the rest of the year. You've got that also. So let me ask you then, at this point now, with what you've got and what you're particularly planning with the series, will it become, or will you turn it into an audio book to give people another media, a medium that they can listen to the book, the Fall Gauntlet series?
I think I will, because they're shorter stories. I think it lends itself well to the book. So, yeah, I think that is a good project as well.
I agree.
Books for yours?
Sorry, say that again.
Do you have audiobooks up for yours?
No, not yet. I mean, my books are sort of 500 plus pages, so it's a slightly bigger project. But I mean, certainly from you, which is why I asked, because I think they lend in terms of length perfectly for audiobooks, and they're a great listen. They're a great read. So just to be able to relax and have someone narrate it for you, that would be really good. So that would be something that I would look forward to, very definitely. We can help you with sort of promoting that as we go along later on, whenever you want to do that, of course. So when you sit down to write, do you have like a writing routine? Do you have a word count, a page count, a time frame that you write between? How do you write?
Yeah, so I like to write in the morning if I can, before my day job starts. And I usually go for word count goals. So I'll start with maybe 500 words a day, because I haven't been writing consistently right now. I've just kind of been marketing and doing other things. I'm just starting to get back into it. So 500 words a day is a good start for me. I'll tend to do more, up to 1,000. And then maybe week 2, I'll go into 1,000 words a day and just kind of do what's comfortable and try to keep hitting that word count consistently.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, some people, I mean, for me, for example, my goal was 1,000 words a day. And I was hitting it for the most part, probably for sort of 3 or 4 months, thereabouts. But then as we kind of got into the cover design process and writing the synopsis and getting the marketing organized, so that page count sort of diminished a little bit because there's so much work to do. Well, marketing the book is no mean feat. In some respect, writing the book is the easy part,
No,
you
I
know.
know. Yeah,
Yes, it is. Getting it out is no mean feat. So that's kind of the longer haul for that. But it's good that you have a goal in terms of a daily word count, which is great, and because I think it helps to keep the book ticking along. And then if you reach those goals, it gives you the momentum to carry on and do the next one, especially if you start getting some really good feedback.
yeah.
Those sorts of things. And when you sent your book out for editing, do you find that there's quite a lot to rewrite to edit when you get it back?
Yes and no. It definitely depends. I think Fall Gauntlet is kind of a newer story in my mind. So in working with my editor, Jean, who I've had for a couple of years, she's incredible. Kind of working out the different world building issues for the first time. But now book 3, it's like we've kind of worked through a lot of those things, so it gets easier. Whereas Saudaji, which I'm putting out later this year, I've rewritten it a couple times, so I think it's a little bit more polished, but I guess we'll see with her feedback that's coming in.
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, for me, I don't like the rewriting, editing process really, if you like. So I always try to my first drafts, which is perhaps why, when you look at some of the other writers out there, one particularly we spoke about him before, Chris Fox, who writes sci-fi. But not only does he do fiction, but non-fiction. He's got a non-fiction book out, which is write 5,000 words an hour. I'm thinking, crikey, how on earth do you do 5,000 words an hour? For me, I always try, because I don't like that editing and rewriting process. I find it stifling. I try to, my first draft is as clean as possible. So I will, if I've written, let's say 500 words yesterday, I will go over that and edit it to the nth degree before I write the next one. And so I kind of cycle back that way, just trying to keep it as clean as possible. And for me, I find that makes the editing process not only easier, but quicker. So I can get the books out. So my next one will be out in the next sort of couple of months or so. But yeah, I try to go through that process really. But again, it's really good to have those kind of daily goals when you reach a word count. So what software do you use when you're writing?
Nothing too fancy. I've tried some of the other ones, but I always end up going back to just Microsoft Word or Google Docs. Like, yeah. I don't need to.
Sorry, I was going to say I'm the same. I would just write my drafts in Google Docs because it's just very simple and it's there and you can kind of use it. I've tried Scrivener and things like that, and they are fantastic programs. They're really good, and a lot of writers use them and swear by them. But I'm a kind of fairly simple guy. I like to keep things very straightforward, very easy. So Google Docs, it's right there, and I can just start typing straight away. So that's good. What about formatting? So once you've got your draft ready and your manuscript is then ready for publishing, how do you format it? Do you use software for that?
I use Microsoft Word for any paperback that I'm uploading to Amazon, and then I'll use Kindle Create for any ebook file.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So thinking about ebook files now, on your website, you've got some fan fiction. I'm assuming that's all ebooks. It's all sort of digital. So it's the Vitrals book one of the Highline series or Hayline stories.
Yep.
Hayline, I can't even speak. Hayline series. So it's a Pokemon fan fiction. How did that come about? Is it something that you want to move into, or you're writing as well as? How is it working for you?
There was a time that I was just so obsessed with Pokemon and I needed more of it in my life. And that's also kind of a personal story that I was using to kind of process some things,
All right.
with my family as well. And yeah, it was just like so fun to write. I wrote it so fast because I was just excited to, and started putting it up on Wattpad because I heard that was a place to do it. And
Yeah.
yeah, people gave good feedback, and I was like, okay, this is fun.
Yeah, that's really good. And how many chapters? Because they're all on your website. So if you're watching this and you want to go and read the fan fiction, then it's all on Job's website. So go and have a look at that. The link for that will be somewhere in the description below this video, or wherever, or on the website. So but go and click on it and have a look and have a read. How many chapters are on there now?
There's 26 in that
Okay,
story.
all
Mhm.
right. So it's almost a full book then, if not more. You know, into a
Yep.
second one.
Yeah,
Okay,
full novel.
yeah, it's good. So some good work. So it's nice as well because there's a contrast there between your sci-fi and your fan fiction, but there will be similarities. And what it will allow people to do is to get to know you and hear your voice as a writer, which is
Mhm.
great. That's really good. So let's when we've been talking for almost an hour, so let's kind of start rounding things up a little bit.
Sure.
With the Fall Gauntlet, three books are out now. How many more books are you kind of and have ready to go or ready to write?
With the Fall Gauntlet, yeah, there will be 9 books in part one,
Yeah.
and I'm outlining book 4 right now, Condor. I'm gonna put that out this summer, hopefully, and then book 5, Shark, will be out this winter, I hope. So 2 more releases, and then I'm gonna do an omnibus next month, which compiles the first 3 stories
Oh, that's fantastic. As well as your novel.
of the novel later this year. Yep.
Yeah, it says, you know, there's nothing like setting lofty goals. That's really
I
good.
know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. We should really look forward to all of those. So yes, I mean, so please let me know once those are out, so I can continue on with the story. I'll keep an eye out anyway, and we'll let everybody know once those are out so they can go and have a look for themselves as well. But you mentioned earlier on, or I kind of started touching on it. You got series two and series three. Series two is titled slightly different. Do you want to kind of go over that a little bit again without giving too much away? But what can we expect with that?
Sure. Slightly Different is a planned trilogy.
Ah,
It's actually related to the Fall Gauntlet universe. That's kind of a little hint there. But yeah, it's a far future planet that this population has edited out a certain gene, or at least they
okay.
think they have. I won't reveal what that gene is or what that trait is related to, but that's kind of the central conflict. They think they've edited it out, and it exists in the main 2 characters, these kind of misfits on this planet, and it's going to start some serious issues with everyone.
Fantastic. It sounds really good. But now the next one, Soul Signature. Um, Talk a little bit about that because there is something that fascinated me in the kind of description of that. So do you want to kind of go over that a little bit of what people can expect in that?
Sure, yeah. Soul Signature is based off of a short story that I've already finished writing and planning to turn it into a novel. It may just be a standalone, it may be a duology. I haven't decided yet, but the basic premise is they can jump into different bodies, sort of like available
Yeah,
units that are
yeah.
in different galaxies. And that story is kind of about humans and AI and how we're evolving sort of together on this similar path, and the implications and the problems that come out of that.
That sounds fascinating. Body jumping. It was that two-word phrase that jumped out at me. And when I read the rest of it, I thought, oh, okay, that's really interesting. Again, it conjures up all sorts of images in my mind of what may be happening. But again, of course, I should wait and look forward to reading all of that and see if I'm right with that. Which would be good, which would be great. Well, look, listen, let's leave it there at that point. What I would like to do though is to invite you back later on in the year, potentially, once you've got your more stories out and your novels coming out and all those sort of things. Would you be happy to come back on?
I would love that.
Okay, that's great. I shall look forward to it, and we'll stay in touch anyway. So for you guys who are watching this, Joe's website link will be down below, as will links to his Instagram, Facebook, perhaps maybe X or Twitter as it was or is or whatever it is. Just so people can get in touch with you and at least find out what you're doing. So there will be links to everything in and around this video. So Joe, listen, thank you very much for coming on today, and we will speak again in the next few months. Thanks very much for coming.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me. Had a great time.
Thanks, Joe. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye, Paul.
Thank you for joining us on another captivating episode of the Page Turnerz podcast. We hope you enjoyed delving into the pages with us, discovering new stories, and revisiting beloved classics. If you're as passionate about books as we are, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review. Your feedback keeps us bringing you fascinating discussions, author interviews, and book recommendations. Remember, the adventure never ends when you have a book in hand. Until next time, keep turning those pages and let the magic of storytelling continue to inspire your imagination. Happy reading.